What's up, my weirdos? It's Saira. This week, we are interviewing a very good friend of mine and an amazing human being who is doing some incredible things over in the UK. Her name is Nina Mohanty, and she is starting a company called Bloom. Bloom is an entity that is helping migrants get funding for all of the things that they need in life. And I would much rather Nina share her story than me. So let's just dive in. What's up, everyone? We are here with Nina Mohanty, and of course, I am here with my lovely co-host Megan McShane. Nina, we are so excited to be interviewing you today about all things Bloom. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, Megan, should we just get started?
Yeah, we definitely should. Nina, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for bearing with me today.
I just want to acknowledge for a second that you are in London. Is that correct?
I am. I'm calling in from London, but this is a Northern California girl accent.
I just want to acknowledge that we've gone global to
There you
some
go.
regard. We've jumped the pond and we're all
We've
in
jumped the
three different
pond.
time zones, which is kind of
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
there we go.
cool.
Well, Nina, thank you so much for coming on. We always like to kick it off a little bit, really learning a lot about you. So, in our mind, every single person that happened to be female on our podcast is a heroine in their own regard. So, in your own words, what has been your journey to get here today?
Ooh, gosh, how much time do we have? Um, where to start? I am American by birth. I grew up in the Silicon Valley, born and raised. Yes, people live there. I always get that. People kind of stop me and they're like, "People live in the Silicon Valley?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, someone has to make all those apps that you use. But my parents were both immigrants from India and Taiwan, and they moved to the US in time for the dot-com boom. And so I am really a child of the Silicon Valley. Um, I ended up leaving the US though when I was 20 and moved to Paris. I miss it so much. But I studied there, did my last year of school there, and then when I graduated, I worked at the US Embassy. So actually, my first love in life, straight out of college, was public service, and that's still something that very much is something I hold dear in my heart. But turns out, and no offense to any civil servants, working for the government is a bit bureaucratic. Go figure. And so I decided to do a master's degree at the London School of Economics. And during that time, I fell into fintech. And I say fell into fintech because I feel like now there's like 50 different certificates and courses, and like everyone wants to, like, Wharton has a course and Oxford has a course. But back when I fell into fintech, I was just like, oh, this seems cool. I guess I could go work for a bank, maybe. And I actually landed at MasterCard, which at the time I thought was a bank. Spoiler alert, it's not. But I learned a lot there, and it was very serendipitous, and I'm glad I ended up there because it was there that I saw kind of this first wave of consumer fintech in the UK come out. So Starling Bank, Monzo, although Monzo was Mondo back then, Revolut was kind of quite young still. And this idea that, like, oh, wait, we can use technology to help people live healthier financial lives was something that really spoke to me, was something I held very close to my heart because I'm very open about the fact that I racked up a lot of debt in my university days. But since then, have worked at a bunch of fintech companies, including Starling Bank, including Mastercard, of course, and most recently Klarna. And then a few months ago, I left my role at Klarna to start my own founder journey, which has been terrifying, but also the most rewarding thing I've done. And I've learned so much in a very short amount of time. And so I'm really excited to be here and share this with you today.
What a really amazing story to hear. I that gave me a little bit of a chill just kind of hearing all of the things that you've done, Nina, and what an extensive background you have despite how young you are, which
Mhm.
I love hearing all of that. So I would love to know, what was your tipping point? Like what drove you to shift from Klarna, which is, such a wonderful brand in fintech, and start your own company? What was your tipping point?
Yeah, I mean, this is real talk, right? So I'm just gonna be like totally open about it. It was a combination of things. It was on the one hand, Klarna is a brilliant company. They're doing really well. It's a very innovative company, but I, on the one hand, found that I had become a bit stagnant. I don't know if you've ever felt that in a job before where you're kind of like, I don't really feel like I'm learning anymore.
Deeply.
And I'm, one of those goody two shoes or like, gold star girls that was always like, what can I do more? Can I do extra credit?
Hmm.
So I wasn't quite content to sit back and just kind of chill.
Yeah.
And I think there's a time in life to sit back and chill. Don't get me wrong. And I don't begrudge anyone that chooses to do that, but it just wasn't right for me at the time. The other thing was, I think while fintech has really made huge strides and made it really easy for a lot of us to do things like get involved in investing for the first time or kind of save in a way that is more approachable, oftentimes I felt that I was building products for people who looked very much like me, who were kind of like in the UK, we call them yuppies, young urban professionals. But there was a huge swath of people that weren't being served. And so this was typically kind of, um, I guess they're referred to as LMIs, low to medium income demographics, definitely communities of color. And I kept kind of sitting there and talking about it and telling people, like, hey, we should fix this. We should address this. This is a big problem. And everyone's like, yeah, yeah, absolutely. We should do something about that. But no one was doing anything. And I had always felt like, I don't know, maybe I need to unpack this with my therapist, but I always felt like, oh, I'm the girl who goes and executes on someone else's vision,
Mm.
right? Cuz like I know myself and you give me a target, I will execute for that. But it had never occurred to me that actually I could be the one setting the vision. And so it kind of was this perfect storm. The pandemic happened. I was suddenly gifted all of this time. So I started just speaking to people who, are now becoming customers or, part of our customer base. And I spoke to, actually, it was funny. I was speaking to my director of studies from my master's degree. And I was like, Sandy, I'm going to do a PhD. What do you think? And he's like, Nina, you do not want to do a PhD. Not right now. Like, do that later. But first, this feels like there's a business here. Everything you're telling me, all this research you've done, why don't you go build this? And it was amazing to have someone say, why don't you do it instead of saying, oh, why don't you go ask some guy to go build it or, join an existing team to build it. So that was, yeah, a combination of things that led me to Bloom.
Amazing. I didn't even realize that that was kind of the trigger. What a cool thing to come out of the pandemic, though. Not something I would have personally expected at all. Um, so just kind of laced into that, what has been your experience fundraising? Have you started that process, and what has that looked like for you?
Gosh. Yeah. So it has been a journey. It was a really interesting thing from the start when I decided I was going to do Bloom because I knew the opportunity was big enough to be venture backable. Um, and actually, I think I even shortchanged myself at the beginning and was like, yeah, this could be big, but I hadn't realized just how big it could be. But I was kind of sitting from a position where I was always miffed with venture capitalists, people in the corporate world, anyone that can allocate funding basically, who are, getting on stage and saying like, "Oh, there's a funding gap and we should do something about that." And it's awful. And we know that like, what was it, a few years ago, like less than 1% of VC funding was going to female founders.
Right.
And it's really interesting to see it as an observer and to actually experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of had hoped that we had come much further than we really have. Quite early on, I had a conversation with Romy Savova, who's the founder and CEO of PensionBee, which is like a pension aggregator here in the UK. And she recently took her company public. And the pictures are kind of like Whitney Wolf Heard taking Bumble public, and she's got her children with her. And it was like this amazing image. And Romy kind of said to me, "Listen, Nina, I know you. You're a raging feminist, and we love that. I'm just going to be totally straight with you. Like, it is hard." And she shared stories with me about, going into rooms where pension bee was her idea. She had all of the knowledge about the pension industry, and people would turn to her male co-founder and ask him, for the facts to back it up and where he thought the vision was going. And she said to me, like, it's going to be hard, and I just want you to be aware of that. And so I took that on board, of course, and her insights have been invaluable to me, but I had not expected it. And it's everything from like, where's your male co-founder
Mm-hmm.
to I was once told by a VC, actually, you should get a white guy to be your CEO.
Oh my
And
gosh.
in
Funny.
a different conversation, I told someone that I really liked product and I like being really close to customers and
Mm-hmm.
building product. And he said, "Oh, you should be chief product officer. Like, if you love product, you should be chief product officer and you should like bring some guy in to be CEO." And it's one of those things where like, that it's happening right there, but it's this out of body experience to be experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention that, Bloom is serving migrant communities. So the very racist comments that are made, you know, and it's such an interesting thing because there's such a power imbalance there where you've got like, I'm here, a first time founder. I need funding to make this thing a reality. And if you on the other side of the screen are telling me racist things, do I then call you out for it? Do I let it slide in the hopes that you'll still write me a check? What do you do in that situation?
Well,
Um,
and I feel this on a very deep level just because working with old men in banking, and actually something I was sharing with Megan right before this recording even happened. I think that like the people that sit on your cap table are just so important to you because they're also your advisors and they're the people that are going to coach you to success. So if fundamentally you don't agree with them and what they're saying, I think that makes it so much more difficult to accept the money, right? And that's just what goes through my mind. That's one of the reasons that I invest via, things like Female Founders Alliance, where I know that my money is going towards people that are underserved. But it's that's tough, Nina. I can't imagine being in that position where you're really between a rock and a hard place because you're staring at someone in the face that's like, here's some money, but I'm going to say things that are horrible.
Right.
I
yeah.
just can't. I mean, talk about dirty money, like
Yeah.
it's so uncomfortable.
But Nina, I think this is a really unique experience that we get to talk to you being you said a couple months in, right?
Yep.
So
Mhm.
many people that want to venture out on their own, including myself, are scared to death. You're like, I see
Mhm.
this opportunity. I know I'm good at this, but am I willing to take that risk? So in my mind, like you have it all at this point in time, like for real. So you've taken that risk. You're starting to really seek out who are your advocates that probably are going to be more female than male in your space.
Mhm.
And pressing forward with the tough questions and being able to say, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what direction to go yet. And I don't know who to trust and what precedents I need to set.
Mhm.
And so for us, we always try to, like you're saying, like building product. I'm in product marketing, so I feel that on a deep level. The customer is always first, and we're for not building for them, then we're just building for ourselves.
Right.
But looking back on the last couple months, what advice would you give your past self or other people that are kind of coming to this tipping point themselves?
Yeah. I think it's a combination. Well, there are so many things that come to mind immediately. The first thing is having a support system there. And I was very lucky in that from the get-go. I had Saira in my support system.
Good
I had
person to have.
a great person to have. I have um Koki, and I've got, my friend Esther and all of my friends from uni, um, or from my master's degree, or, so many people who have rushed towards me and been like, "We believe in you." And some of them are like, "I want to write you a check," which is next level and not even what I was, what I meant by support system, but they're there to, you know, take me to the theater when they're like, "Yo, you're really stressed out. You have been staring at a screen for a week straight. Your eyes are twitching. You need some." I had a friend who was like, "We're gonna go get deep tissue stone massages. We're going." And just like very matter of factly, and I was like, "I don't have time for this."
That
And she said,
sounds
"No,
so
we're going."
familiar, by the way. That's like Megan and I used to do that on a monthly basis in Seattle together. And she would literally drag me, and then she would not want to go into the massage room because I would sit there and this wonderful Hawaiian man would come massage me until I'd scream. And Megan would be
Like,
like,
"Oh."
"Can you please quiet down? I'm trying to tell you a story."
But we all need that person,
Yeah, we do.
and you need like a very supportive partner, or, a group of friends. And even, to a certain extent, your family members. So my parents are engineers by trade. They understand tech, but they don't really understand fintech. And I was terrified. There was that additional piece where, like, I am the daughter of immigrants. So there's a certain, like, well, stereotypical immigrant experience where my parents were like, "You're making such good money at Klarna. Why would you leave that?" Where their mentality was very much a survival mentality. Like, don't rock the boat, just get your paycheck and save up, and don't try and do anything crazy or wild.
Right.
So the idea of me jumping ship to go and bet on myself, I was terrified to tell my parents, actually. And my mother, when I finally told her over FaceTime, she wouldn't even look at me.
Mm.
That was tough because I think she wants security for me. She wants financial security. She wants me to be able to thrive. And so for her, taking this entrepreneurial journey, which could end in tears or glory, she's like, "I don't know if this is the right thing." So the first thing is support. Um, the second thing is, so I'm I'm someone who suffers from imposter syndrome. And sometimes people will be like, "Oh, Nina, do you know anything about this? Or do you know anything about like card issuing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, I know a few things or whatever." And then I'll talk your ear off for 2 hours about it. And it's this kind of discounting your own skill. And I found that right off the bat, I was discounting the skills that I had, where I would say things like, "Oh, I'm not really a marketer. I've not don't have much experience in marketing. I can maybe whip up a go-to-market plan, maybe." And then it was actually like I wrote it, I did it, and then, sent it off, and a few investors were like, "Wow, this is really impressive actually. Like, did you do this yourself or did you outsource it?" And this is something where I don't know that all women do it, but a lot of my girlfriends as well, just even in their day jobs, are kind of like afraid to put themselves out there or suffer from imposter syndrome. And so it was constantly having to remind myself that, you know, you didn't get lucky. You worked really hard for this and you have the skills that you need to do this. And again, that kind of circles back to that support system where then you have your girlfriends or whoever hyping you up and being like, "Yes, queen, you can do it." And Saira was there for it and saying like, "You've got this, you know what you're doing. Just eye on the prize, keep going." And sometimes that's just what you need.
Yeah. I feel that deeply only because I've had like Megan in the background. Like, I think there's this like continual running joke, right? Every great woman has like a slew of women in the background just cheering them on, and like
Yeah.
honestly sending those late night text messages where you're in full-fledged panic and like, did I make the right decision? And they're just like,
Mhm.
shut up, keep going, you're killing it right now. Because I still, despite the fact that I've gone through hours of coaching to try to work past my imposter syndrome, sometimes it's like hard to be like, I'm here, I earned my seat. And like there's still people in the background that are whispering like, did she earn her seat? You know what I mean? So it's a continual cycle of pushing forward and telling people like, here's my middle finger, because actually not only did I earn my seat, I'm significantly above what I'm doing right now, and I absolutely can. So I love hearing all of that, Nina. I'm so glad that you have the support that you need. And honestly, I'm honored that you consider me to be one of the people in your corner. I am here for you, but like, wow, you've got a team. You've got a team. So we are asking people in this series
Mhm.
a certain set of questions that we would love for
Mhm.
you to kind of answer. And I would love for you to put on like your CEO slash co-founder hat while you're answering this. And the first question is, how would you give someone advice if they were approaching you and saying that they want to first and foremost have a baby, or like trying to tell you that they're pregnant? How would you like give someone advice on how to frame that?
Well, we've gone international, so this is a more nuanced conversation now, I suppose, because in the UK there are definitely there's like statutory pay and all the things that come with maternity leave. Um, Maybe this is the future that feminists want, but I'm the CEO here, I'm the founder,
Yep.
and someone has come to I would want someone to come to me and say like, "Hey, I have some really exciting news that I want to share with you. My partner and I or myself, I'm expecting, and I wanna share that joy with you." I mean, to me, that's like the perfect conversation. Um, and then I'm going, "Ah!" Like, "Woohoo, baby shower, let's do it." Um, and I think there is something very beautiful in having women in leadership positions to be able to have that conversation, because if anyone came to me and said, "I'm expecting," my immediate reaction is just joy. I am not thinking about, "Oh god," I've heard people go, "Oh yeah, but when women go on maternity leave, then you've got to find like someone to cover while she's away, and then you have to pay her leave and everything." Like that is not even mm. One of the things that I find as well is when you treat your employees well, when you treat your team well, they treat you well in return. Um, and I've been very blessed to have lots of friends who are conceiving or on that journey now. And when their companies have been supportive of them, they pay it back, tenfold, 20-fold when they're back in the workplace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think as well, if I can, um, something that I'm thinking about because, just being, like, totally transparent, one of my biggest fears is, my infertility, and that's something that I, sit with and worry about a lot, and I always plan for the worst case with this, um, And it's something I very much want. I want to be a mother one day. Um, and so I've spoken to a lot of female founders who have had to go on maternity leave themselves, and the journeys that they have gone through where they've had to step back or, have someone on their board fill in while they're out. It's a very nuanced thing when you are the person running the business as well. So I'm very interested to see how that goes, hopefully in the future.
Yeah. And it's such a relative thing nowadays. So we know not everyone wants to get pregnant.
Mhm.
But everyone's journey is different to get there.
Yeah.
And what I hear you saying is like if you're a CEO and we're setting a new standard, which by the way you are, Nina, it's like give respect, get respect back. And understand that people want to be their authentic self at work. Like we don't
Mhm.
all want to show up. I mean, God, I'm wearing like a leopard print muumuu right now. You know what I mean? This is my work.
I knew you were
It's
going to
it's
slide that in somehow, Nina.
yeah, it's got to slide in.
It's
But
amazing.
no, it is, and it's such a different thing. But so yeah, I want to applaud you for having that perspective and bringing that into the new working environment and economy that will evolve for our children or our friends' children's children. Okay, so moving down the list of questions. So two things that we've talked about time and time again, and putting on your CEO founder hat. How would you want someone to approach you when negotiating both a pay raise or coming in with an initial salary to a new job on your team?
Yeah, so for that's a brilliant question. I am a big fan of the Fawcett Society here in the UK. And one of the big campaigns they've been working on, so addressing first like someone new coming into the business, is not asking about previous pay. So that's the first thing. Um, I recently found out in one of my previous jobs I was making 3 times less than a male counterpart.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And the pay rise that I had when I left that company and went to the next company was incredible, and they did ask me how much I was on, and I declined to answer. But the reason I bring this up is because oftentimes, I think in certain states, I think in California now, they're trying to outlaw asking
Mm.
what your previous salary or your current salary is, because if you are historically underpaid, well, that just gives the company the excuse to kind of go, well, okay, we'll just like, give you 20% increase maybe. And that's that. So the first thing is I wouldn't ask that. Um, for me, it's all about the research that you've done. So if you can come to me and say like, this is what I'm bringing to the table. This is the research that I've done with comparable positions, or maybe the position is completely new. And this has been the case for me before, where it's like a mashup of a lot of different roles. And I've gone and done the research, and this is what the mean salary is, then that's great. And also, I want someone to have in their back pocket a list of alternatives if we're not able to meet you there. Is it paying for your travel card? Is it giving you, a few extra holidays, or, get creative with it. And I think stick to your guns more than anything is if you know you're worth that much, back that up, and I'm more than happy to pay you that.
But also leading with transparency too is what I hear you
Yes.
saying. Like this is again going back to, hey boss, I'm pregnant. I'm super excited. Are you going to cheer me on through this sort of a thing?
Mhm.
Let's work
Yeah.
through this together. I think when you come on and you're like, this is what I'm worth, this is why I'm worth it, and then here are the confounding variables aside from, what I'm worth on a day-to-day basis, like, I need help with a green card or what have you. So I really
There you
love
go.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I plus one to the transparency. I think that's amazing. Something that I always like I think it's not what have you been making, it's what's your salary expectation and then let them elaborate on the explanation as to why. That's like for me an ideal candidate has all of that put together. So I love that, Nina. So last question that we want to ask you is, so let's say someone is seeking a new job opportunity, finds the job of their dreams at Bloom. How would you recommend someone quit with grace from their previous or soon to be previous job?
How to quit with grace. I think I will start by saying that, of course, everyone's situation is different, and every company is different. So there are certain things that you might want to take into consideration. Like, is your my notice period at Klarna was 3 months. So I mean that's the UK and Europe talking, where you've got very long notice periods.
Is
Um,
that market, by the way, in the UK, Nina?
that is pretty standard. Yeah, a 3 month notice period.
Interesting.
I've heard of, obviously the more senior you get, you're starting to look at a 6 month period. And then beyond that, gardening leave, which is, you're so important that we need you to just sit at home and be paid and not do anything.
Gardening leave.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
goals.
it was a completely new concept to me when I moved here. They'll like put you, it's called gardening leave, and they'll pay you out sometimes up to like a full year, your whole salary, just to be distant from the company before you move to your next role.
And
It's
is that like kind of like an advisory role to the person that's coming in to take over so that they
no,
transition? Oh no.
no. You have no, you hand in your laptop, everything. Like,
Oh.
you're just sat there for 6 months to a year because everything in your juicy brain
Hmm.
could be
Mm.
taken to the next place, so they wanna put some distance between that.
Ooh.
So that was a very interesting thing that I found when I moved here. Right, yeah, so I think there's a certain extent to which you wanna be considerate of your colleagues, of your direct, supervisors or managers or whatever, and my hope, of course, is always, and this applies to Bloom as well. If anyone working at Bloom were to go to a different company for a new opportunity, I would want to be happy for them. Um, the perfect scenario is like, that's amazing. I'm thrilled for you. Obviously, we're so sad to see you leave, but I'm glad that you are taking on a new challenge. So my hope always is that the response on the other side is gonna be that positive. I think I'm a big fan of writing things out, so whether it's an email or a letter, I'm a handwritten note kinda gal as well, so I'm really
I've had one
cheesy,
of
like,
those from you. I love those. Yeah.
I'm an old school, yeah, thank you notes and everything kinda gal. So, you just write out, and probably if it applies, thank that person for the opportunity, for what you've experienced and everything that you've learned and how you've grown, and let them know. The other thing I'll note though is, it it's not always required that you tell them where you're going. And this is something this I just feel like I should say out loud, because it had not occurred to me that you didn't have to tell someone where you're going. And in fact, in some cases, it can even like start to bleed into a legal question. Um, but you are not required to tell someone where you're headed as well. But if you feel like sharing, then that's always really exciting too. So maybe gracefully thank your team, offer to hand over to the relevant people, and, you know, be a team player where you can until your time is up. But that would be how I would want someone to do it if they were leaving Bloom, for example.
I love that, Nina. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that. I bring this up constantly when we talk to people, but I think over the last spring, they were calling it the Great Resignation. Right.
Mhm.
And there were so many people that were feeling stuck. Like, I'm in a bedroom right now recording. I work here too in my full-time job. I mean, it's a lot
Mhm.
in one space, and people started to feel a little stagnant and have been quitting. And so Sai and I have just had these conversations. We're like, yeah, I mean, we've quit jobs in the past. This isn't our first job. But we had to learn all of that. And so we've been just talking about like, what kind of things are we like, oh yeah, duh, now that we
Mhm.
didn't have back then. So I appreciate and honor your perspective here.
Thank you.
Is in it, at the end of the day, it is a job. I know, you as a founder, it's your whole life, and I totally respect and honor that. But for some people, it just doesn't align with their career goals and passions.
Absolutely.
And that's okay, because you want people that are passionate alongside you.
Yeah.
And aligned to
Definitely.
that. Yeah.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. There was something I was going to say. Oh, I can't remember now. It was on the tip of my tongue, but I've lost it.
Oh, shoot. It'll come back.
Yeah.
We can tweet it.
We can
Yes,
tweet
there we
it.
go.
Nina, this has been such a treasure trove of information. I'm so happy that we had the opportunity to bring you on and interview you and learn all of the things about Nina Mohanty. I have one last question for you. Where can our listeners find you online?
I can be found on Twitter at Nina Mohanty or on LinkedIn. Please feel free to get in touch. Or if you're interested in Bloom, we are very interested in having a diverse cap table. So, if you're delving into private market investing, you can find out more about us at bloommoney.co.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time today. It has been so much fun interviewing you. And I'm very excited to watch Bloom blossom.
Yes.
Was
Oh,
that
we
the right
love a
pun?
pun.
Was that the right pun?
Oh, we love a pun. We love it. Rife with puns. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Nina. It's been a pleasure. What a lovely, lovely interview with Nina, getting it from her perspective. And might I say, boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Like getting started on a new company, and we get to hear kind of first blush of what's going on.
Yes. Yes. She is one of those people who is just so honest and transparent, and she's at an inflection point in her life, right? She's starting her first company. She's attempting to do her first fundraise. To hear it straight from her was just really impactful to me, because at some point you and I will be in a similar disposition, and it's intense to hear it from the trenches, right?
Absolutely. So me scribbling down some things. I want to know if you got the same things I got from this.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with the one that I like the best, which is relax and recharge. I think there's studies on recharging. I think you and I know that near and dear to our hearts, or at least I force you to. Even taking a break between seasons, just to recharge and reset has been so important.
Something that she really struck me with was that, and I took this away from the general gist of everything she was saying, which was just full transparency with your employer, and this expectation that your employer is also going to embrace the fact that you're being fully transparent. And that's something that I've been really fortunate with at HMB, but I don't know that I've always had that historically, particularly in traditional finance, where it kind of gets rammed down your throat that it's more acceptable to be very opaque with your situation. And it was much more the norm to mask something like pregnancy until you could no longer hide it. So I just, I want to applaud all of the women out there that are courageous enough to be transparent, because it's not always something that's easy to execute on.
Yeah. And I think also what you and I are, I'm continuously learning, at least I'll just speak for myself, is that work is a part of your life, and finding that balance. And if you can't show up as your true self in your job, like your authentic, transparent self with a voice and with the passion behind it, then, you're kind of wasting your time. At least that's how I feel. I'm like, I will put 100% effort into my job because I care about it. But that doesn't mean I'm not putting 100% into the rest of my life too, because you have to be more well-rounded. And I know we're constantly trying to figure out what that balance is when we can, and it ebbs and flows. But yeah, that's always just kind of top of mind for me. And it's in line with a lot of the things that Nina said around being transparent and authentic, and having a voice, and then also compounded with who are your advocates and who are not.
Oh, yeah. When she was talking about your hype squad, I was like, That is my
Mm-hmm.
Megans. I have two Megans in my life that are my hype squad, my sister, my family, like all of the people that stand behind me. And like, let's not get it twisted. It also caught me a little bit when, it was like my mom wouldn't look at me on FaceTime. My dad was not excited when I was like, I'm leaving the bank, I'm jumping ship, I hate that place. Oops, did I say that out loud?
Mm-hmm.
Um, like my family wasn't excited for me either, but like having them actually soldier up behind me and now supporting me and all the decisions that I've made to perpetuate what I believe in. I think that is almost the crux of your personal success, right? Your success is only as important as the people that support you behind it because your happiness ends up being their happiness as well. So I just yeah, I'm having all the feelings. I'm having a lot of feelings right now. So should we wrap this up, Meg?
Yes, we should. You know, I love feelings. I'm all about it.
Oh,
That's
yeah, but
good.
I hate having them. So that's quite enough of that. All right, love. Well, another wonderful episode done. Let's
Mm.
talk later.
All right. Love you, babe.
Love you. Bye.